Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Sugar Mama's Fireplate Podcast. I am your host, financial planner, Canna Campbell, and I am here every Monday morning, ready to motivate, inspire, and educate you when it comes to money in your life and building realistic, long-term, sustainable financial freedom and independence in your life. Now, this morning we are in for a treat. We have an incredibly inspiring story by a lady named Hannah. And Hannah will share with us how the simple desire, dream, and decision was the catalyst to completely reinvent her financial future and herself along the way. You see, Hannah really wanted to own a property. She wanted to be financially independent and answer to no one. How good does that sound? However, there was one slight problem. That is credit card debt. $40,000 worth of credit card debt. So she decided to do a few things differently, work her absolute backside off, and has completely turned her life around. That $40,000 worth of credit card debt is gone. And guess what? She now has $55,000 in savings, $10,000 in emergency money. She owns her home with a mortgage, but a mortgage that is rapidly evaporating. She has $25,000 in her offset account and has a growing share portfolio of $27,000. Hannah is going to share with us exactly what happened and what she did. So get ready to be inspired and empowered so that you too realize how powerful you are when you turn that dream, that desire, and make that powerful decision. Hannah, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I am so grateful for your time, but also for being so open and generous with what you've gone through and what you've learned along the way.
My pleasure.
It is quite incredible what you've done. Can we just go back and just, I guess, how did you get into the credit card debt in the first place?
Well, I had a business. I actually had a couple of businesses that I was running. Just, it was during the GFC, sales sort of dropped a little bit, just general business stuff, and, I ended up putting living expenses on the credit card. I ended up putting business expenses on the credit card and thought, I'll pay all that back. It'll be fine. But yeah, never did it get paid back. And I ended up I had 3 credit cards at the time. And every time I'd get the letter from the bank going, we're increasing your limit, I'd go, okay. And then literally I would just spend that money and it would be up to its limit. And I'd sort of pay off the minimums and then go, okay, I've got a little bit of space on my credit card. I can put some more stuff on that, And I had no idea what I was doing. Seriously, I just had no idea. So I had one credit card with $25,000 on it. That was the biggest one. I had a store card with about $8,500 on it, and then another bank card with $12,500. And I just think I stuck my head in the sand and just thought, I'll pay it off at some stage. I don't know when, but I'll pay it off.
Listening to the way that you spoke about, I've got a bit of space on the card so I can use that. It's almost like you kind of almost treat it like in your head, like a prepaid credit card. It's like I've got credit on my account.
Yeah. I kind of looked at it as a loan, it's a loan from the bank and I'm paying my interest and paying it off and then I can get it back up again if I need anything. So yeah, it was the worst way to look at it, to be honest.
Deep down, whilst you were going through that phase where you were burying your head in the sand, what were you really feeling?
completely out of control. Absolutely out of control. And probably also a failure as well, because on the surface I looked like a successful business person, but underneath I was basically a duck. I looked really calm on the top, but underneath I was paddling like hell. So to be honest, I just felt like a complete failure because, I still had this debt and it was like a dirty secret.
Yeah, I bet.
Even my partner didn't know about it.
Look, I don't think you're a failure at all. I think it's, a lack of financial education I think our system has a lot to blame with. So
Yeah.
I don't think you should ever think or call yourself a failure. And, we're all on this planet learning all sorts of different lessons in life. And, for this one, it was a financial lesson. I'm learning all the time about other things in other areas of my life. We might learn something about our health. We might learn something about, our friendships, or or even something, like a new skill. We're constantly evolving and growing. So never think of yourself as a failure. Do you remember the moment where you decided, okay, I don't want to live my life like this anymore? Or that moment when you went, okay, well, I want to buy a property, so I've got to fix this. Like, what was that kind of crossover?
When my relationship broke down, and it wasn't necessarily because of the credit card debt. My partner had no idea that I had that, because we had kind of kept our finances separate. We weren't married, so we just kept things separately. Yeah, when I eventually left, because I wasn't happy in the relationship itself, it wasn't because of the business or anything like that, and I moved out on my own, that's when I thought, I have got to get myself together. Got to get it under control. I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I just knew I had to do something.
And how did that feel then, making that empowering decision?
Oh, fabulous, because I suddenly just felt scary as well, because I didn't know how I was going to do it. Yeah, it just felt really good to make that decision and to decide that I was going to take control of my future. Because at the time I was like in my mid-40s, so that was playing on my mind as well. But I was in my mid-40s, and when I left, I literally left with, well, I did have assets, but not. I had no cash. I was asset rich and cash poor. So that's what
it sounds like there was an element of, feeling really proud and responsible in making that decision as well. Like going, right, okay, enough's enough. I'm stepping up and I'm going to do this and do the work.
Yeah. Definitely. I did feel proud of myself for making that decision, but also incredibly scared because I really had no idea.
All right. So you're mid-40s, you're in $40,000 worth of credit card debt with nothing else, and you are limited other resources, and you are newly single.
Yeah. With 2 kids.
With 2 kids.
Yeah.
How did you pay this credit card debt off?
Well, I was lucky in terms of I had an investment property that I had bought 12 years before with my partner and my mother. We had renovated it and rented it out for quite some time. But at the time, the area that I was in was really flat in terms of there were no booms. Like we bought the house probably at the end of the boom in 2004, 2005, and had it rented out. And we'd rented it out privately. That was another mistake I made. It had been rented out the entire time, and we did have good tenants, but at stages there were times when they didn't pay their rent because they were out of work or whatever, and that put a massive strain on me as well because I was covering their rent until they paid me back. But yeah, so we had it 12 years prior, and then my mother decided that she wanted to sell the property. She didn't want to she was moving on in her life, sort of basically told me that was what she wanted to do, and I had to go along. I wasn't going to talk her out of it because, that was her choice. and I couldn't buy her out of it, so we had to sell it.
And how did you deal with the feeling of maybe going backwards a little bit in selling this?
I was upset because I had always thought of that property as my superannuation, that we were going to hold on to it for quite some time. You know, it was actually cash flow positive at the time. So that was good, but it just hadn't moved in terms of a capital growth, really. But yeah, I was quite disappointed, and I kind of went down the track of trying to look at ways of buying her out, but just I couldn't. I was self-employed at the time, and just not really financially that great. Had too much credit card debt. So, yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, you have to face your responsibilities and the facts and the figures. And if the numbers don't stack up, sometimes we are backed into a corner, and we just have to kind of go, all right, the chapter is going, the story changes a little bit.
Yeah.
But as long as you're heading in the right direction, it doesn't matter. Sometimes we do need to take a step backwards in order to launch to your 3 steps forward. You know, it's just part of the journey. It's never straight and simple. So did you then sort of look at this and go, all right, well, I'm going to get some money out of my share of this property.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm going to use this to wipe my credit card debt and just start afresh. Is that what you sort of went, okay?
That is definitely what I did. Yeah. I just thought, I want these credit cards off my back. I never, ever want them again. I did actually, I paid off the $25,000 one, and I paid off the $8,500 one. I paid off all of them, I should say. But I did keep one of them, and I reduced the limit on it to $1,000. So that was basically my emergency money if something happened and I needed some cash, because at that stage, basically I had no savings at all.
So just so I can make this clear for all the listeners right now, it's not like you were selling a $1 million property and walking away with a couple of $100,000 to easily wipe your $40,000 of credit card debt. It was pretty much all that money made from the property went straight to the credit card debt with not much left over.
Yeah, that's right. I had nothing left over. My mum made some money because she had put the majority of the money in. So she made more than what I did. But literally my part of the money went to my credit cards.
So the moment those credit cards were paid off, you're literally at ground zero again.
Yes.
Starting from zero.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. You're amazing. You have just that alone, like you have gone from zero to owning your own home, $55,000 in savings, like another 10 in emergency money. And I my heart is smiling right now, knowing and hearing the word emergency money in cash and not emergency money as a credit card.
Yes.
And then, of course, you know, that money in your offset account and the growing share portfolio. And you've literally just started from nothing again.
Nothing. Yeah.
It's amazing what you can do when you put your head down and look at some goals and stay focused and work your backside off. But we'll come to all of that in a second.
Yeah.
So, what then made you think, okay, all right, credit card debt's now cleared. I've got to do things differently. I don't want to repeat history. I don't want to be, you know, in the same position 12 months later. I need to make sure that my story evolves and grows and strengthens, and I'm, you know, proud of my accomplishments. What led you to do things differently?
I just didn't want to get myself back into that situation again. I wanted to feel secure. Yeah, basically, security. Security was mainly what I wanted to feel. I didn't want to feel that if I was evicted from the rental property that I was in, that I would be destitute or anything like that. You know, I just wanted to be secure, to be honest.
It's almost like you used the fear and anxiety in a positive way to redirect you to what you do want and did want, which is what you've obviously created for yourself. And that is that security and that safety and that element of independence and freedom.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people fear can really hold you back and keep you frozen.
Well, fear kept me from actually leaving the relationship in the first place for years.
Wow.
Not in terms of I was fearful of my partner. That wasn't a problem. It was just fear of, oh, my God, I work part-time as a freelancer. How on earth am I going to survive, and I've got 2 kids because I'll be taking the kids with me and, I knew obviously I could apply to Centrelink and get a little bit of help there, but, you can't live off Centrelink forever, and I didn't want to. I just wanted to become independent and, answer to nobody, like you said in the intro.
And you started, obviously setting up your accounts and, did you do a budget? Did you write down some financial goals? Where did it go from here?
Literally, I didn't write anything down, I must admit. Most of the time I have it all in my head, which is probably a bad thing. I should actually write these things down. But I literally just decided, right, I'm just going to pay myself first, because that was probably the worst thing that I used to do. Is I would pay everybody else. I pay all my employees, my rent, my utilities, all the bills. I'd pay all of them first, and then I would never put it aside for savings. So I decided I'm going to pay myself first, and I started off with $30 a week, putting that into a separate bank account, and I wasn't allowed to touch it. And then when I got to I'd saved about $5,000. I was very proud of myself. I went to see a financial planner, and to be honest, all we did was switch my superannuation over to a different, I won't say the company, but to the company that they represented. And that was it. He didn't give me any kind of pathway to sort of use that $5,000 to then, maybe earn something more,
Grow
it. That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry. And, maybe put it in shares. I think basically he just looked at me as if to say, you're an idiot. And, I've got multi-million-dollar clients, and I'd rather deal with them.
That's really disappointing. I'm sorry that you went through that. That's not how it should be done. And I hope that I know things are definitely getting better, with obviously advice being made available in a much more financially friendly manner and various different levels. But still, that's just not acceptable in my eyes as someone from the industry. So you decided then to have a go at doing it yourself.
Yes, I did.
Bought some shares.
Well, first off, I came across. Well, I read the Barefoot Investors book, and I also came across your book and read your book as well. And your book put me on the path of buying shares. Probably the Barefoot Investors book put me on the path of, putting your money into different accounts and having, the different buckets and all that sort of stuff. But your book definitely made it feel that I could achieve it by doing it in $1,000 lots from the $1,000 project. And that's what gave me kind of the confidence to do it. Because I originally thought I had experience with shares when I was in my 20s. I had received an inheritance from an aunt, and I had friends in the financial sector at that stage, and they said, well, we can help you invest that. And basically I had invested that, but then I let it go for a couple of years, and it grew, and it was fantastic. But then when I was overseas traveling, and then I came back and started a business, and basically all that money kind of got sunk into the business. So that's where that money went to. So I had some experience with shares, but I didn't understand them because I'd literally just given that money to a broker, and that broker had invested it. So I really have no idea if it made money, obviously. Yeah. So I was happy to see it, increasing, but I had absolutely no knowledge whatsoever about shares. So
what did you go and invest and buy if you had no knowledge, and how did it go? Dare I ask?
Dare you ask? Yes. I don't even know. I've got to preface this by saying that I was actually going through menopause at the same time. So I kind of look back now and think, oh my God, everything that I did was probably menopause driven, that my brain was fried and I had no idea what I was doing. But the first parcel of shares that I bought was in a company. It was a sustainable energy. Well, it is. It's still around. Company. I think they're based in South Australia. And they had a new technology that was to do with thermal heating and whatever. This is what I mean, and I had no idea. But I kind of was thinking I want to be ecologically responsible. Yes.
Ethical investor.
I didn't want to invest in, look, I know a lot of people invest in mines and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so that was my thought process of going with it. And it was a new company, and it was the initial public offering, and I read a lot about it, and I watched YouTube videos about people, and I looked at who was investing and all that sort of stuff, and I thought, okay, well, these people are obviously a little bit smarter than me. They're investing, so I'll put some money in. And so I put in $1,000, and at the time the shares were about 34 cents a share. And then so this was 2019, so in the last 4 years it's dropped down to about 4 cents a share.
Oh my gosh. Oh wow, you really got burned.
Absolutely. So it's kind of like, well, okay, it was $1,000. I kind of look at the money that I've put into my share portfolio, that if I lost that money, then it's a bugger, but it's not part of my initial savings account and my emergency account and all that sort of stuff. So,
if you were my friend back then, I would say to you just a couple of things that would be like, okay, number one, diversification is essential.
Yes.
Number two, I mean, ethical investing was still relatively new back then.
Yes.
In the early 2000s. And number three, I'd be saying, like, look at companies and businesses that have been around for decades before sort of jumping in. If you're new to investing, and then probably the fourth thing I'd be saying is, consider something like an ETF or a listed investment company where that $1,000 would have been immediately diversified, and that you've got reasonably consistent dividends coming in.
I know that now, Kat.
I know you know that. I know you know that now. And I think the fifth thing I'd be saying is, okay, look at the research. Is this company paying out, profits yet?
No.
Is it potentially too premature? Can you maybe look at different industries as well and different service providers, and knowing that obviously this is a very shares are a long-term investment, 10 years minimum, I say.
Yeah.
So I would have potentially stopped you. However, I could have been very wrong. It could have been, gone
off like a rocket, but it did not.
Exactly. But okay, so you got burnt.
Yep.
Most people, when they get burnt, never touch shares ever again. They're normally scarred for life. But you've shared with us you've got a growing share portfolio worth $27,000.
Yeah.
What made you go, okay, I stuffed up. I need to try this again and try things differently? Like, what happened there?
Well, I did take your advice after that and invested in companies that had been around for a while. And I didn't really know a lot about ETFs at that time. And I should have just basically bought just all ETFs and just left it, whatever. But I did look at companies. I started reading kind of market newsletters and stuff like that, and different things that came out, just to get a feel of what was around, what sort of companies. And I do have one ETF. So I've got 10 shares in total, 10 share lots.
Okay, I'm really relieved to hear it's a lot more diversified now. That's a huge progress.
So, and they're sort of split between dividend paying shares and some growth shares in there as well.
Good. Okay.
So, yeah. I think my kind of strategy now would be to just go for more dividend-paying shares. So out of the 10 shares that I do have, 4 of them are like in the red and 6 of them are actually in the green. So
that's not a bad thing necessarily because it means that your portfolio is not positively correlated. So it means there's potentially, without knowing obviously what's in your portfolio, you never want all of your shares performing spectacularly. That's almost a red flag in itself, because it means it's not diversified. They're all linked to each other.
Yeah.
So when the tides turn, they could then all of a sudden all be in the red.
Yeah.
So never expect your portfolio to always be charging at the same level. And as I said, shares are a long-term gain. I never worry about what the value of my share portfolio really is. I care at the end of the day is, what dividends have I earned this year?
Yeah.
And is it more than last year? Because that's where we know if we're heading in the right direction. So now that you look at your share portfolio, and how it's obviously changed, and you're now a lot more educated and informed when it comes to building a portfolio and obviously picking those investments. How do you feel when you look at your share portfolio?
Oh God, I'm just amazed. I'm amazed that I have even got one.
The tone of your voice is so, it's filled with so much pride.
Yes, yeah, I am proud, and it's been funny. It's the share trading platform that I use. I have an app that I use, and they have this little widget on it that tells you where you're sitting as opposed to other investors, which I think is completely skewed. It's just stupid. But at one stage, one of my shares literally took off. So I was up in the top 4% of investors.
Oh, wow.
Just was like, oh, look at me. But it was just because one share actually rose in value quite high, and then it was really funny. It dropped, and then I dropped back to being in the bottom 20% of investors, and now I'm sitting in the top 15%. But I just
pretty good.
Yeah, no, but it's very skewed. It's really, really skewed. So yeah, I don't believe it.
All right. Well, I've got to move on to your property, because how does a single mother who's only just paid off $40,000 of the credit card debt, pretty much left with nothing, then manage to, and I imagine it took a bit of time, then go on and buy a property for themselves? How did that then happen?
Well, I've got to say I was actually very fortunate in the fact that a friend of mine owned an accommodation property, and they needed a manager to look after it, and it came with accommodation, and he offered me the job, and I'd never really done that sort of thing before, but I just thought, free accommodation, okay, let's do it.
Absolutely. Gosh, you're a single mother. What an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, it was. On the other hand, though, it was an amazing opportunity, but it wasn't all bells and whistles. It was 24/7.
Yeah.
I did have staff, and luckily I did live on site, but it literally was 24/7. So even though there were some weeks where we wouldn't have guests in the property, those weeks I was spent fixing everything around the property and cleaning and all that sort of stuff. So it was 2.5 years, I think, I was there. And call me dumb, but it took me a long while. It probably took me at least 6 months to a year to realise the opportunity that I actually had, because up until then I'd been working freelance and casually and, bits and bobs all over the place. I hadn't actually had a full-time wage, sorry. and suddenly I had this wage, and I was suddenly thinking, I can spend money on this, and this. And so I did. And just finances got a little bit out of control again. And then once I realised that was what I was doing, I just went, no, you can actually save half of your wage with this opportunity and live off the other half. And that's what I ended up doing. I wasn't earning a huge amount. I was only earning like 60 grand a year. And so I was able to, put that aside, and that's how I managed to save up the cash to buy the house. But even then, it still wasn't enough. I still only had a 5% deposit when I bought the house, because the broker that I used didn't want to put everything into the house. They wanted to leave me with a little bit just in case something happened. But that's how I managed to save that amount of money in a short period of time.
And how amazing is that awareness? You caught yourself, like, old habits die hard,
They do.
And there are plenty of people who are in Australia and around the world who are maybe, on site, maybe working on a mine where they've got, accommodation and food and all their outgoings covered for, earning huge salaries, but still also have nothing to show for it because, when they're on holiday, they blow it all, or they have other sort of vices in their life. Like, that awareness saved you.
Yes, it did.
And you could, quickly get onto it and make some, immediate changes. How do you manage your money then today?
Kind of the same way. Obviously, I can't save half of it, but whenever, because I'm self-employed again now. So once I am paid, I have direct debits set up for everything, like rates, electricity, food, holidays, what else? Savings.
Yeah.
That's number one. So everything is set up, and literally whatever is left over, then I'm allowed to spend it. So that was the biggest thing for me.
I love your self-control and how responsible you are. It's really inspiring.
It's so funny because, like, when you have money start coming in, and this is lifestyle creep with a lot of people when they get pay rises and stuff like that. I was like, I've got a little bit more I can spend, and honestly, at the end of the day, I cannot tell you what I spent that money on. I have no idea. Like, seriously.
We buy so much stuff that's really worthless within a matter of minutes.
Yeah, that's right.
And we spend seconds paying for it, but we don't actually stop and think, well, hang on, that's, the equivalent of 6 hours worth of, pay.
Yeah.
So we can't just go and buy that thing that
which we discard within, like, a week or whatever.
And we're then looking back online or in the shops again to buy something else to get that dopamine hit.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. And it's just crazy.
Obviously, it's all about balance in life. But that's why my book is called Mindful Money, because it's about being mindful. Like, if you want to buy something that's important to you, great, but make sure it's a really present moment. You've done the thought beforehand. You know that you're going to love that, you use and appreciate it for long-term love. Like, it's, and it's, I do think that's potentially one of the blessings that will come out from, the cost of living crisis, because it's really forcing all of us to just simply say, hang on, maybe I don't need that, or maybe I should wait for that, or maybe I can think about acquiring that in a different way at a different time, in a different manner. How would you say that you're, like, I guess what I'm really trying to ask you is, like, how has your mindset come into all of this? Because I always say to people, they're going on the financial journey, if they're really serious and they want sustainable change, that they need to look at their mindset before they launch even into doing a budget. How has your mindset served you in your financial journey?
Well, I was lucky in that prior to my relationship breakdown, I had come across he calls himself an awareness coach, and he's not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or anything like that. It works with mindfulness and manifestation and all that sort of stuff. And his wife was originally a client of mine, or a customer of mine, I should say, in one of my businesses. And he had said to me, like, when you're ready, just come and see me. So I had been seeing him for probably a couple of years before I actually left my relationship. And he had given me so many books to read on mindfulness and all that sort of stuff. So despite the fact that I was at my very, very lowest when I left that relationship and was probably suffering from depression at the time, his help and his teachings and the books that he'd given me to read had helped me kind of not fall into that victim mindset that, oh, you know, I can't do this. It's all everybody else's fault. I mean, when I first went to see him, that's what happened. It was all my partner's fault, and I was trying to prove that it was his fault, and you know he should be doing this for me, and blah blah blah. But yeah, once I that probably saved me, going to see him and talking to him, and him putting me onto different books with the mindfulness and manifestation and all that sort of stuff, and just basically believing in me that I was smart and that I could do this, because
he
at the
was
time,
right.
yeah, but at the time I didn't feel that way. I did not feel that way at all, and like I said before, I just felt like the biggest failure. That, you know, my businesses had failed, my relationship had failed, and yeah, I was starting from scratch again. So
there's something really beautiful from starting from scratch. It's like a complete rebirth.
yeah, absolutely.
And it's, I mean, words can't even describe it. You know, I think it's a very, very powerful place to go to and to spring out from.
Absolutely.
And I would love to get all the details of the books that you've mentioned, and I will, if I can get them, I will put them in the podcast notes for everyone to refer to, because I'm sure lots of people will be fascinated by this. And I mean, I guess you've gone through so much ups and downs, and you know, you've got your offset account is growing. You know, you've got emergency money. Things are very different for you now. Your mortgage reducing each time, like each pay, you know, each time you get paid or each time you make a bank transfer. How do you feel knowing it's one step forward, one step up, one step in a better place?
Can't tell you the feeling of security I have now and how good that feels. And I, like, every day I thank past me, future me, thanks past me for doing it in the first place, because when COVID hit, I wasn't worried. I wasn't at all worried, because I knew I had money in the bank and emergency money. And COVID, I kind of looked at as I was never going to touch my super. I wasn't going to, and if people withdrew stuff from their super, well, that was their own choice to do that, and they are in a completely different situation to me, so I have no judgment on that. But I said to myself, I'm not withdrawing that money, and basically I set myself a challenge that I was going to get through COVID without spending any money either. So
Wow.
yeah. So I had all this time at home, and I had a house that was new that I'd just bought, because I bought it in 2019.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Moved in on 18th of December 2019, and I had left my job, and I just started a new job at a different company. That company was within the hospitality tourism business, and so our company shut down overnight. Yeah, so I was just like, oh, well, there goes my wage. There was nothing for me to do, so I wasn't getting paid, and I was a contractor for them as well. So it wasn't that I was.
So you had no rights.
No, that's right. But luckily, I had a bookkeeping job that I did once a week for a local company, and I had been doing that for quite some time. I've been doing that for at least 4 years, and I was able to apply for the JobKeeper through that. So I did get the JobKeeper through COVID, and yeah, basically I just set myself this goal that I wasn't going to spend any money, but I had all this time and I wanted to do stuff around the house. So I did things like searched Facebook Marketplace for free plants and free timber and free whatever I could find, basically, and landscaped my garden and did bits and bobs around the house. So yeah,
you're amazing. You are really amazing. You are
Oh,
so strong. You are so inspiring, and you are so financially resilient.
well, I had to be.
Well, I
Because,
know
like,
it's sink or swim, and like I
yeah,
know that feeling of when I became a single mother. It was literally like, it's not just doggy paddle. It's like
yep,
fight. Like, and
yes,
and I look
absolutely.
back and go, I'm actually so grateful for that experience because it's made me wiser, stronger, smarter, and a whole other level of awareness in my
Absolutely.
life. Like I
Yep,
see it as a blessing.
yep.
Like, what would you say is the number one best thing that you've ever done for yourself financially?
Get rid of the credit cards,
Yeah.
for one, and just buy my own house.
And
That
how do you
was,
feel about your superannuation then? As because you were in your mid-40s as a single
yep,
mother and you'd been self-employed, you
yep.
probably barely had anything in super anyway.
I had nothing.
Well, how does super fit into this piece as well? Because you've got a lot going on. I haven't even asked about the
Yep.
super. You've shared so much.
So super is very, very low in terms of if I'd been working, full time, like, a lot of people do. And because I was self-employed for so long, I did the typical thing of not paying my own superannuation.
Which is very common. You're not alone there.
Absolutely. And, and the thing is also there's a lot of people who get burnt by small businesses who don't pay their superannuation for their employees.
Mm.
And then, we had the situation with one of the companies that I was working for that they closed down and were owing superannuation to all the employees. And yeah, it's just, look, from a small business point of view, I can understand that because sometimes at the end of the day, there's not enough money left over to pay that superannuation. But also when you're an employee, you're like, I deserve my superannuation. I worked for you. So, look, I can see both sides. So I now pay myself, super. It might not be exactly, what I should be paying, but at least every week money goes into my super that I contribute, and it is going up. So that's nice to to see.
It makes me even happier.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, to wrap up today's episode, what would you say to anyone listening to this episode this morning that is like the old you? It's stuck in fear. It's made that perhaps they may have made some bad decisions in the past, like blowing all their savings or getting into credit card debt or making a regretful financial decision, but they're stuck in that panic, that fear, that anxiety, that sensation of being overwhelmed or even depressed. And they're just being stuck and controlled by that fear.
Mm.
Knowing what you have gone through and how you faced your fears head on and completely rebuilt yourself. And I'd say like quite profound how you have financially rebuilt yourself. What would you say to that one person listening this morning going, okay, I'm like this, I'm stuck. Like, what would your advice be to them right now if they have a dream and a desire like you had back then to be independent and have your own home?
I would say that they can do it. They absolutely can do it. And all it takes is just taking that first step. And even if they don't believe in themselves at first, it's quite amazing how little things can build into big things. Like I'm blown away that I have the amount of money that I have at the moment. Like I just think, how on earth did that happen? But all I did was just little things.
Well, you got on with it and you gave it a good go,
Yeah,
and you had nothing to lose and
no,
so much to gain.
yeah.
So
Well, what one of the decisions that I made when I decided to buy the house, and I was just desperate. I was just sick of. I didn't want to be in a rental property, and you know, at any stage I could be kicked out because the owner's selling the property or whatever. At one stage, I did live in a house like that because the rent was really low, and basically it was $40 cheaper than what I'd been in previously. And so the difference between that rent and my previous rent went into my savings. So say I was saving $50 a week, I was then saving $90 a week. So I just instantly put that into my savings account. And so to anybody who is stuck, just know that you're not the only one. Like when you're going through something like this, you kind of think, oh, God, A, you're a failure. B, you're the only one that's ever gone through this. And C, how on earth are you going to dig yourself out of this? And everybody's going to think you're an idiot. But you're not at all. You know, I personally think there are millions upon millions of people in Australia and around the world who are hiding a lot of financial secrets. Like they're just embarrassed.
Yeah.
So you're not the only one that's in this situation, and you can, if you put your mind to it, get out of it. And it just takes little steps. Just move into a smaller house, ride a bike to work if you can, or, you know, catch public transport instead of driving. Just lower your expenses.
And get creative. Like what a
Absolutely.
fantastic situation you got,
Yep.
you know, being able to manage a property so you got free accommodation. Like that is just gold.
When it was first offered to me, they wanted me to pay rent. I went, no way. I'm not doing that. So
and then you go get creative and have boundaries. There you go.
So they basically came back to me and said, okay, you can have the property for free. So that was good. But I did things like I was a mystery shopper. I do mystery shopping, or just get creative. Sell all your stuff on eBay. You know, like you can absolutely guarantee you've got stuff lying around the house that you don't use anymore, and you know, just sell it on eBay. Even if you sell it for $5 and postage, just get it out of your house and get money for it. So, yeah, that's.
Well, the average Australian household, apparently, according to Gumtree, has on average 5,300 worth of unused, unwanted, unloved items.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So probably most of them are in my house.
That's a pretty good starting amount. Look, Hannah, I'm so incredibly grateful for your time and for sharing your story and your journey, and also the intricacies of your new fabulous financially independent life that you're building for yourself. And I'm so proud of everything you've done for yourself, and I'm sure I'm inspired listening to this, and I can only imagine how proud your children are of you, and the amazing lessons you have subconsciously instilled in them, watching you go through this. So and your hard work and your dedication to grow through this, and as you said, not be a victim.
Yeah, no. Well, I must say I am proud of my children as well, because both of them one has a full-time job but doesn't earn it. She's on a traineeship, and my other one works just part-time in a little casual job. And I've now gotten them into the habit of every time they get paid, I have to put half of their pay into their savings, and the other half they can spend and do whatever they want with, and there's no restrictions. They can buy whatever they want, and basically both of them are doing fabulously. Like, one's got about $12,000 in her bank account, and the other one's got 7,000. So yeah, I know. I am so proud of them. They are proud of themselves, because they go, oh my gosh, look how much I've got in here. And they've got little goals, because they're saving up to buy car. Well, my oldest managed to save up and pay cash for her very first car. So she's now saving up to buy another one, and trade the old one in and buy a nice pretty new one. So I'm very proud of them. I am proud of myself, of where I've gotten myself to. And I remember going to a seminar, like a business seminar, back in 2003. Actually, I was pregnant with my first one. The speaker said, what do you you've got 3 words that would describe you and your life and what you want from life. And I just distinctly remember me saying freedom. Freedom was one of my words, and it only hit me probably last year that I actually now have freedom because I'm not worried and pooping my pants when lockdowns come along, and you know what I mean. Like, I had money to pay those bills, and the good thing was, out of COVID, I never actually dipped into my emergency fund or anything else. I didn't redraw any money. I didn't dip into my savings. I actually just lowered all my expenses and lived off what I had. So it was JobKeeper, but I lived off that. So
Incredible.
yeah,
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and also the other advice I would give would be to not buy a huge house. I bought a small house, and it was just big enough for the girls and I, and it doesn't take a long time to mow the lawns or clean the house or anything like that. So that was one of my other goals. Was I didn't want to buy a massive house. I didn't want to be tied down to a massive mortgage. And yeah, that's my other piece of advice.
Really valuable advice and so incredibly important. And there's going to be someone, and hopefully lots of people actually listen and go, you know what, Hannah's right. You don't need this ridiculous amount of debt, stress, and pressure on your shoulders just to have a bigger home. And having something over your head is something to be proud of.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
Well, Hannah, thank you so much. I'm so incredibly grateful for your time, and I'm sure everyone who's listened to this episode this morning is as well. So I will hopefully grab the details of those books and link them in the podcast notes for everyone to go and check out for themselves, as everyone is on their own journey as well, learning, evolving and growing, absorbing new things all the time. So thank you everyone for listening to this morning's episode on Sugar Mama's Fire Plate. If you could do me a massive favor, well, really, it's a small favor, but for me, it would be a massive favor. And that favor, can't speak this morning. And that is to leave a rating and review for Sugar Mama's Fire Plate. And of course, make sure you are following this channel. Thank you, everyone. I will catch you next Monday for more financial education, inspiration, and motivation. Ciao for now.